The COST network of transcultural memory aims to connect memory scholars in Europe and beyond, and they organize certain annual meetings around certain themes, and we had the privilege to host this particular annual meeting here at the CEU in September 2014, and the overarching theme of this conference is Mobilizing Memory for Change. And the leaders of the COST network agreed that Budapest is really an excellent place to study how memory is actually mobilizing for change for all different directions, how certain unnegotiated interventions are actually changing and trying to change the canon, and how certain civic initiatives are also using different digital means trying to counteract certain memorial interventions.
Transcultural memory as a new field or as a turn in memory studies came about in or around 2010. Memory studies before that was not exclusively, but in large parts about charting the national sites of memory. What we did have in large quarters of memory studies was a methodological nationalism. We looked at the nation. And it's been for some years now that we've moved away from that and look at how different memories inform each other, enable each other, how memories travel. And we're looking in this network specifically at how this happens in Europe.
What I and my colleagues in the working group on mediation are interested in is what is the role of media, television, literature, news media, and in this week's conference, the digital media in the creation of transnational and transcultural memory in Europe.
I think that since the openings in 1989, the memorial landscape has really switched, and some of the issues that we've been discussing in the western part of Europe are now migrating into the eastern part of Europe. And I think the really exciting aspects of this conference and of discussing transnational and transcultural memory issues is particularly to see how some of the very same questions that have occupied us in the West are now being raised in the eastern part of Europe.
It is interesting to compare problematics of each of different groups with our group and see how the concept, for instance, of transcultural memory could be applied to our studies about politics of memory, memory laws, political actors involved in the games of memory and so on.
Memories are very much connected to communities, identities, and this can make them conflictuous. So I wanted to get a researcher who will study tension between, on the one side, attempts in Europe to create a kind of common or shared memory, and on the other hand, numerous conflicts that go on between nations, between different cultural groups, within nations and across national nations around memory. So we are also interested of discussing if transcultural memory can create new communities.
Both memory in itself is already a highly complex phenomenon, and migration today, I mean, because it's not anymore a question of moving from one place to another, but we talk about flows and circularities and so on. So actually what we learned and what we agreed on from our working group was that we must be better in just describing the sheer complexity of the phenomena and not sort of jump to conclusions and sort of doing so-called over-interpretations.
I must say that I've learned the sheer complexity of that field. It's just not just another medium, but it is, as Andrew Hoskins would say, something that's embedded in a very complex media ecology. And what we need to grasp what digital memory is about is also very complex interdisciplinary approaches, ranging all the way from close reading to digital humanities approaches.
It's been a fantastic day and a half talking about the new media in terms of digital media, internet, and how that is affecting people's involvement in the creation of stories, about their own lives, about the lives of their communities, the lives of their nations, and what has emerged from this is indeed the sheer complexities of the sorts of communities. It's not a question of going from the nation to something like a super nation or something like Europe. On the contrary, what seems to be happening is that at the private level, family history has become extremely important, as have local subcultures. And what we need to do, I think, in the future is to try and map the complexities of those sort of intersecting communities.
For me, the really big insight is that the digital also has its materiality, and that we can't really distinguish between the online and the offline in any kind of set ways, but we have to think about some of the interconnections. So yes, memories circulate in different ways, perhaps on digital platforms, and they're often created through the participation in digital platforms. But is the quality of these memories and is their political meanings and interventions really different or new? I really don't think so. So that's what I've learned.
Budapest is a perfect location due to its transnational multicultural past. Also being in the heart of Central Europe, of course, implies that kind of a position. But also because of its historical heritage, in the sense of that here you have different layers of pastness that is present in the society.
Budapest is not just the site for the conference, it's also a medium for a conference, because questions of memory are particularly urgent here. And I think they're very fraught questions, and I think CEU is a space where you could raise some difficult questions with a kind of freedom of expression and of debate that is actually quite unique in today's academia.